Hey guys, welcome back to this brand new video. Today I'm going to show you how to make your voice better in Audacity. So I'm going over the best settings here, also adding effects, so that your recordings sound better by the end. But first guys, if you want, you can go down on this video in the comment section and click on the first comment that I pinned. This will bring you to my Fiverr, and here you can get a YouTube logo and banner or a modern minimalist YouTube logo and banner for your YouTube channel. But now back to the video. In case you don't have Audacity yet, I have up here in the right corner a video that explains you how to download and install Audacity. But let's jump right in. And first of all, I'm going to go to audio setup, and then we're going to do audio settings. Make sure the first one here is an MME. Then here is going to be the device that plays back, so basically your output, so where you're going to hear the audio. So I would like to have my speakers. You can do whatever you want. Microphone here, this is mine, the Blue Yeti. And I'm going to make sure it's on mono here, because we're only recording a microphone channel. And if you're only recording a microphone channel, all you need is a mono channel. So make sure that if it's only a microphone, it's on mono. Then make sure here it's at 48,000. This we can keep at 32-bit float. And here the latency, we don't have to do anything with that. So we're just going to click OK here. Now up here, as you can see, you have the microphone volume and the speakers volume. So normally, as you can see, for you to probably be smaller like this, but I stretch them out. You'll see later why, because that will actually help me see where my volume is at approximately. And also make sure that these aren't too loud or too quiet in terms of volume. So then what I'm going to do is add tracks here. So I'm going to go to tracks, add new, and same here, we're going to do a mono track, because remember, we're only recording a microphone here. So we're going to keep it on mono. As you can see here in Audacity in 3.6 and 3.7, the updates, it did get a new layout right here. There are some changes in the UI, but this basically still is a audio track. So now that we have our audio track here, I'm just going to record a piece of audio that's going to help us through the recording, make it sound better and add effects on it later on. Okay, now here, as you can see, I recorded a piece of audio. So do keep in mind that there are no effects on this piece of audio, because I'm actually using OBS right now, and I'm using filters within OBS that make my voice better. So do keep in mind that this is a recording with my Blue Yeti without any effects on it. So let's just listen to it. This is a piece of audio for a recording test. Now, as you can hear, it's not that good at the moment. I also left a bit of silence at the beginning. I did that on purpose, I'll show you why. And also we have a mouse click towards the end. So let's first make sure that we remove that. So as you can see, I can just take this here. This is basically a trim end. And a trim end removes the part that you don't want. Recording test. Now, as you can see, I can do it up here when I say test. I'm going to cut it off right here. Let's hear it. Recording test. There we go. So that's already a part that we didn't need. Now I can also, for example, there's some useless sound right here. So I can also just take this here, selection tool. So make sure that this one is actually selected, the selection tool. And then I can just do delete on my keyboard. And to actually remove that piece of audio as well. So basically all I have at the beginning here is some silence. Now also while recording, this is a bit of a general thing, but make sure that the windows are closed, there are no fans. If it's even better if you have some natural acoustics or natural isolation in your room. Now I know there are always going to be some sounds in cases where you have a hard time removing the neighbor sound or traffic or whatever that might be. And I know you can't always fix those problems in your environment in terms of sound, but really make sure before recording, this is a general thing as I said, make sure that the environment is as quiet as possible. Really remove the most amount of background noise. So it's easier in the recording process to actually add effects on it and to work with that piece of audio. First of all, if I listen to this, I think it's a bit too quiet. This is a piece of audio, as you can see. So what we can do then is make sure it's selected, so you can double click on this right here. I'm going to go to effects up here, volume and compression, and we're going to go to normalize. Now you don't want to do this too much, so I'm going to say around -12, and I'm going to do apply. As you can see, this is a piece of audio for a recording test. It's already better. It's a bit louder already. We don't want it to be too loud nor too quiet. If you want it to be a bit louder, you can do that as well. Just have to watch how many dB you want to boost it. And so now we're actually going to remove some of the background noise. So I'm actually going to select a region here as I did before, where there's just pure silence. We don't have to take that much. There you go. We don't really need anything else. We have the background noise. So what we're going to do then is just make sure that only this region is selected. Then we're going to go back to effects. Go down to noise removal and repair. I'm going to do noise reduction. Here I'm going to just simply click on cat noise profile. There we go. Now we're going to make sure everything is selected. Once again, you can double click on the audio track. Go back to effects again. Back to noise removal and repair, noise reduction. And here, as you can see, you can play around with it, really listen. You can also hear preview if you will, by how much you want it to be reduced. This is a piece of audio for a as you can hear. There's already way less noise. We can even put this to 13 maybe. But don't do this too much, because it will actually change your voice a bit in a bad way. So you don't want to overdo this. And once again, you make sure you use that preview to really check how it sounds. So as I said, I want to go with like 13 here. I'm just going to click OK. And so now if I play it, as you can hear, there's been a lot of noise reduced. There's almost no background sound anymore. And so then if you don't want this right here, we can do the same thing. We can basically do a trim start, and we're going to do it up until the point I talk. This is a piece of audio for a recording test. And there you go. It's all we really need in this case. I'm just going to go up here, and as you can see, if I put it here, I can actually grab the audio. I'm going to put it right here at the beginning. So now that we get a pretty clean recording, it's actually time to add effects on it. So then once again, I'm going to double click here, make sure all of the audio here that I want to use is selected. I'm going to go to effects again, EQ and filters, and we actually want to make sure it's filter curve EQ. As you can see here, I have a grid with decibels, and here you have some frequencies. Now, if you don't know a lot about EQ, I'm going to simplify this as much as possible. So generally speaking, this will be the lows right here, up until there's like this point right here, a bit more like here maybe. Here's going to be more of like muffled frequencies, so I'm not going to really touch this area. Nor I'm going to touch this area here because it's going to be more boxed. It's really above like 800 to 1000, I would say, where it's going to be the mid-range, where the mid-range really starts, if you will, up until here. And then afterwards here, if I've had this part, it's going to get higher and higher, but also thinner and thinner. So you don't want to overdo this, because if you do too much high end towards here, it's going to get too thin, your sound, and you don't really not want that. And here above 10,000 to 12,000, rather, I would say, hertz is going to be openness. So making whatever sound you're working on a bit more open, a bit more, give it a bit more air. That's how they say that in terms. Now, what a lot of YouTubers will do is actually use presets, and they just use like a general preset, and they tell you to use that preset. But the thing is, everybody has a different microphone and also different voice. Some people have a lower voice and others have a higher voice. And of course, also the difference between male and female vocals. There's also a difference there. So I think it's more important you do it appropriate to your voice. If you already have a low voice, you're going to boost the lows even more. You're going to have way too much of a low voice and even get boominess if you go too much here. But anyways, I'm going to start here. So anything that's under like 80 to 100 hertz is a bit of a rumble and boominess, which isn't really useful to use. So what we're going to do then is actually just remove this right here, pretty much. Now you can make a slight curve here, you can see right here, but you do want to make sure that this is nicely cut off here. Now then, I always like a bit of low end in my voice. Now that really depends on you, but I really do like to have some lows in there. Not too much, to do for example right here, and I like to do it around 130 hertz. Now you can see it approximately around here. Now I don't have every exact hertz here, frequency, but it doesn't matter, it's enough to work with. I'm just going to put this up right here. I'm just going to do preview here, because with like a lot of other tools, effects that you have within Audacity, you can actually do a preview, which is really nice. So let's listen what it sounds like so far. This is a piece of audio for a recording test. As you can see if I overdo it. This is a piece of audio for a recording. You can hear that it's actually really working those low ends. So I'm going to do like a bit of a general one here. I'm not going to do much more than that. I'm actually going to bring it down a bit here. This is a piece of audio for enough for the moment. Now, as I said, I'm not going to touch around here. Nor I'm going to go right here. It's really at the, I would say 800 to 1000 hertz, where I start touching the frequencies again. I'm going to say around here. And this one we actually want to bring down, because this is, you could say the mid-range really removes the nasally. So if you have some nasal in your voice that you actually can't naturally really fix, I mean, you can work on it. You can actually fix it in the production part here, in the mixing part. So let's hear it a bit. This is a piece of audio for a recording test. Now some are going to be more subtle to hear, so you're not going to hear everything as well. Same, we don't want to overdo it here. There's a limit. And then here, I generally do it around 2100 hertz or 2200 hertz. So 2100 if you will. It's gonna be a bit harder here, but that's a frequency that I really like, at least with my voice. As I said, could be a bit different for you. Also depends if you're a male or female singer or vocalist really, or basically any recording. But around 2100, as I said, it has a nice clarity boost for me, so it makes my voice a bit clearer around this frequency, which I like a lot, because I obviously want also my voice to be quite clear. So listen here. So you can make this quite small. As you see, if you click on it, it's going to make you little dots, as you see. This is a piece of audio for a recording test. So there you go. You really want to play around with this, really check what's best for you, what is appropriate to your voice. Okay, then as I said, at last here, we're going to go towards the end and make the audio a bit more open, so it doesn't sound too muffled or too closed, if you will. Openness right here. Really depends how much you want to do. This is a piece of audio for a recording test. There we go, I brought this low a bit up here. It's sometimes hard to really know what you want to boost and cut here. Don't listen to it too often, you get fatigued, you actually get tired of listening to it, so you can take breaks from time to time. Okay, there you go, that's what I ended up with. I could make the airness a bit more open here, as I said, around 12,000. And I didn't really go for it. I get it a bit down here. But as you can see here, if I preview it for one last time, this is a piece of audio for a recording test. It's not perfect, as I said, but I really did try to do it most appropriately to my voice. In case you wanted to have a preset, you can also go up here, factory presets, and you can actually go back to default here, or you can do something specific like a bass boost. Don't do this too much, because if you use this preset, it can actually be way up there in the lows, and that can actually make you too boominess, way too thick, and it's actually not going to sound good. Bass cut's going to do the opposite. It's going to make your voice way thinner, so that's also not necessarily something you want. And then here you have some other effects you could actually potentially want to use. If you actually want to save it, you can actually just export it. If you have already one, you can actually import it, which is going to export it. It immediately brings you to the effect parameters here. As you can see, a folder, so you can just immediately save it here. I don't know, I'm going to call it like EQ1. And just click save. And so in the future, if you want to reuse it on any other project, you can actually just, as you can see, if I do default here and go back here and I do import, as you can see, it saved it. But now in any case, we're going to apply it. So it's actually going to be applied, added to this piece of audio. This is a piece of audio for a recording test. I could have maybe done a bit more in the lows or remove some nasalness here. We're not going to go too much in detail about that. But do make sure that every time you do that, you're happy with the result. So now we're going to add one last thing. Make sure that once again, this is all selected. I'm going to go to effect and we're going to go to volume and compression and I'm going to add compressor. Now what a compressor basically does is compression reduces the dynamic range of signals basically, making sure that the loudest and the softest parts of the recording don't exceed a certain specific level. So that's basically not too loud nor too quiet. This is very important if, for example, in a recording you're all of a sudden screaming for some reason or the audio becomes pretty quiet, and so that there's actually a minimum amount of quietness and also a maximum amount of noise if, as I said, you maybe touch accidentally something, there's a scream, whatever. Though this is going to be a bit more subtle. You really have to listen carefully to this one because it's not really that obvious. It does make quite a difference. You do have to know what you really want to be the minimum and the maximum here. So if I go quickly back here and I listen to the audio, this is a piece of audio for a recording test. As you can see here, if you look at the levels, recording test. I saw here, and he actually shows it as well with this blue cursor here basically, that it went like between -12 and I think I didn't saw it going lower than -28 approximately here. So keeping that in mind is actually pretty important that you know that as well for in your case. So go back to the compressor. Actually, as I said, when I saw the levels here, I can put it to -12. Some actually might put it up here to -30. But afterwards you will have to normalize the sound again to make it louder. That really depends. Now, as I said, compressor is very subtle, so it really depends how you do with it. And you actually, if you preview here, you're gonna hear a slight difference at times. It's really hard to distinguish what you really need. At the beginning, you can always go for preset and settings. You can actually go to factory presets here. Just with the EQ, actually have different already made presets that you can choose. And I would go for something like a lead vocal, for example. Or maybe you just want something gentle, maybe. Now, don't do these. These are actually for instruments, so watch out for that. Really just do the that are adapted for the voice to give you an idea. I said you can go up to -30. As I said, you can really go up to -30, but I'm going to keep that -12. The makeup gain we don't really need. It's basically going to make it higher, the gain higher once again afterwards, but we're just not going to touch that right here. It's going to stay pretty low, around 5 dB, I guess. The ratio really depends. It depends how much you want it. So if you do 2.1, this is a piece of audio for a 2.1 or 3.1 maybe if you want it to be a bit more. The higher you put this, the more compression it's actually going to put on your voice. So I don't want it to be too high. And here I'm just going to keep everything quite low, to be honest. So then I'm just going to click apply. I don't think you will hear much of a difference. This is a piece of audio for a recording test. It has slightly compressed my voice, but really not that much, just that little final touch. Really the most essential thing here is going to be the EQ. Compressor is quite advanced and I don't expect you to learn it or to know that quite quickly. And so as I said, if you think it's too quiet at the end, you can actually go back to effect and just go to volume and compression and you normalize again. I won't necessarily put it to -12 again, actually change it, put a bit louder, like -6 to -3, but watch out with that because it's going to get pretty loud. But basically, if you're not really happy with the volume, if you think it went down a bit, you can just, as I said, normalize again and towards the end here to make it a bit louder again. But in any case, I already showed you the basics, the essentials of making your voice better here in Audacity. Now, if we're done with everything here, I can actually go up here to File and I do Save Project. And we can do Save Project As. It's going to bring you immediately into the folder, which is going to probably be in your documents, and it's called Audacity, and it will be projects, and it's going to be in that folder. You can see the path up here. And so I'm basically going to call this, might as well, let's call this Audio 2. This is going to be the project file. If you're done with the project file and you actually want to have the media file, so in this case an MP3, you can go to File. You're actually going to do Export Audio here. Now you can choose to go to share-it-to-audio.com, but I'm pretty sure that most of you just want to go to your computer, so you're just going to do Export to Computer. Here's going to be our name, as you can see it remembered the name, so it's Audio2 here, .mp3. That is something you can change here, by the way, if you rather have a WAV file, for example. Here's going to be the path, as I said, it's going to be in your documents probably, and it's going to be called an Audacity, the folder, but you can actually browse it if you want. Now, because as I said, the only thing we recorded is a microphone, we're going to keep it in mono. If you recorded anything else like instruments or any kind of other sound, music, whatever else you could have recorded, make sure it's on stereo. But really, if literally the only thing you recorded is your microphone, you can keep this on mono. Then make sure it's 48,000 here. You can keep this on preset quality. I like to put this at 320. It's really the best quality. But if you think you need like a less quality, maybe in terms of also disk space, you can also already go for the standard here. But I think even though they call it excessive, I really like to have my audio in a good quality. So I do go for that 320 kbps, but it's really up to you. Also don't do current selection and also don't do trim backspace for first clip. because you really want everything in the project here. Even though I have this selected, I wanted everything. If I had other recordings here, I wanted to save everything, so just always do entire project. And as a bonus, you can also edit metadata here, so you can also do like an artist name if it's a song, for example, or anything like a title, a year, genre. If you really want to go there, if you really need that, the option is there. But it doesn't apply in my scenarios. What I'm going to do here is just going to export. And there you go. That's all I needed to do. It will be in the folder right now. There you go. I really wanted to go over the best way, the most essential ways on how to make your voice better in Audacity, essentially. So if you have any questions, leave them down below. Please leave a like, would be really nice. Subscribe would also be really nice. And I hope to see you guys in my next video. Bye.